Okay, y'all, so I see him. There's Papoose. You guys told me he was on the end, so I had to go back and look. And yeah, he's there. And there's Remy, Mom, Fat Joe. So Carissa, Papoose.
This wasn't just another Instagram live. It was a slow-motion disaster, the kind that feels like watching a marriage crumble in front of millions with no undo button and no mercy from the feed. The moment Papoose went live, the air shifted. You could feel it instantly. This wasn't manufactured anger, and it wasn't performative chaos chasing attention. This was a man unleashing years of swallowed pain, choosing to expose it where there was no hiding. His gaze wasn't frantic, it was empty, the hollow look of someone who already knew the outcome but pressed play anyway. Then the revelations began. A single hidden night. A recurring pattern that no one dared name. And then a name dropped that froze the comment section. 50 Cent phones lit up. Chats spiraled out of control. Screens were being recorded everywhere because what Papoose was sharing didn't read like gossip. It felt etched in hurt. He described moments meant to stay buried, conversations never intended for public ears, closeness that defied imagined boundaries. With every word, the weight in the room thickened. But the next revelation stunned everyone. When he suggested that the fallout stretched beyond infidelity and cut straight into his family, the tone shifted entirely. This was no longer celebrity drama. This was devastation. His voice cracked. His breathing hitched. And then, live on camera, the control slipped from his hands. This wasn't spectacle. This was a breakdown. Within minutes, fragments of the story were everywhere. Feeds fractured. Some called it truth-telling. Others called it unraveling. Yet one fact was clear. This moment wasn't sudden. It had been forming silently, deliberately, painfully. By the time the stream ended, nothing remained untouched. Not the relationship, not his image, not the story everyone thought they knew. And as the internet debated sides, one reality persisted. When silence shatters this hard, the damage was done long before anyone was watching. This wasn't closure. This was the moment everything crossed the point of no return.
But maybe that not y'all know, but the one besides Keish that I always talk about, and every time I see him, I tell him thank you, because it wasn't like we was enemies, or we didn't hang out together. Was 50 Cent, Mr. Curtis Jackson.
Wow.
Whenever I put in for an appellate judgment or an appeal, he made sure that letters was written. He personally signed them, telling, the judge, if you do grant her this release.
Buckle up, because what happened next wasn't just a live stream, it was testimony without a witness stand. A marriage laid bare under oath in front of millions, with a silence so dense it finally cracked on camera. This didn't start with shouting or theatrics. It began with stillness, the kind that signals the decision was already made long before the camera even went live. Papoose appeared controlled, almost restrained, like someone reading a verdict he never wanted to face. No showmanship, no bait, just a stare that made it clear whatever came next had already cost him everything. And when he spoke, it wasn't to convince anyone. It was to lay alleged facts into the public record. Within moments, the atmosphere shifted. Not from volume, but from certainty. He didn't present his words as speculation. He framed them as a timeline, a sequence, a recurring pattern that had quietly run parallel to the life everyone thought they knew. Then came the phrase that detonated the room, a secret night. Not a rumor, not a slip, a night he claimed wasn't isolated, only carefully hidden. Viewers scrambled to process what they were hearing. Screens lit up with frantic screenshots and recordings. The kind of attention that doesn't blink because it knows consequences are real. And when the name 50 Cent appeared, it wasn't gossip escalation. It landed like a case file being read aloud, shifting everything instantly. What followed wasn't a flood of images or clips. It was implication, surgical in precision. Papoose spoke of private exchanges allegedly preserved, not for spectacle, but as leverage he had resisted using. He mentioned voice notes that carried an intimacy too familiar to be misunderstood, chats that revealed coordination instead of coincidence. Nothing was played. Nothing was shown. And somehow, that restraint made every unsaid word feel heavier, denser, unavoidable. Because implication can do what proof sometimes cannot. It forces the audience to piece the puzzle themselves. As the live dragged on, Papoose painted a scene that didn't need explicit naming to be understood. Luxury spaces, quiet hours, discretion. A world where boundaries blurred because no one was watching. He didn't narrate the details, he didn't have to. He spoke like someone who had already traced the lines, already connected the dots he never wanted to see. Then the temperature in the room dropped. He paused, drew a deep breath, and revealed that the damage didn't end with betrayal. That was when the story crossed a line no algorithm could soften. He spoke of doubt seeping into places it should never touch, of trust corroding so deeply that even the most sacred assumptions wavered. He didn't shout accusations. He confessed quietly, and in that quiet, the weight was unbearable. In that instant, it stopped being entertainment. It became tragedy. His voice cracked, not with anger, but with grief, the kind of grief that seeks release rather than revenge. He spoke of loving fully, only to discover too late that love had been met with performance. Of living in a life that seemed solid, only to find it held together by omission and concealment. He didn't ask anyone to take sides. He asked them to witness. Comments spiraled. Some demanded every detail, others begged him to stop. The split was immediate, irreversible. Support collided with discomfort. Empathy crashed into caution. And yet, no one looked away. Once doubt is spoken aloud, it cannot return to silence. As clips circulated in real time, narratives raced ahead of facts. Analysts dissected every word. Body language experts slowed down every pause. Old interviews resurfaced, now read through a harsher, unforgiving lens. Moments once brushed off as harmless closeness were suddenly being reframed, pieced together by audiences desperate for coherence. And then there was the silence. No immediate response, no denial, no clarification. Silence that felt deliberate, calculated, or perhaps simply overwhelmed. In moments like this, silence becomes evidence for some and restraint for others, a force that shifts the balance of perception. By the time the live ended, nothing was resolved. No materials released, no names expanded beyond what had already been said. Just a promise, dangerous in its ambiguity, that clarity might come later. That the truth, whatever shape it took, had been delayed long enough. In the hours that followed, the story became a moving target. Headlines were carefully hedged. Panels argued motive versus meltdown. Fans split into camps like jurors who could never reach consensus. Some saw it as the unraveling of a man pushed too far. Others suspected the first chapter of a calculated exposure, timed for maximum impact. But beneath the noise, a quieter truth persisted. The pain felt real. Not curated. Not strategic. Real enough to make viewers uncomfortable. Real enough to remind everyone that behind every public narrative lie private consequences that do not wait for consensus. The mention of family changed everything. This was no longer a simple scandal. It carried ethical weight, gravity that pulled every detail down to ground level. As night turned to morning, the language surrounding the story shifted. Shock gave way to analysis. Analysis gave way to pattern recognition. People stopped asking what happened and began asking how long it had been happening. Why did the breaking point appear publicly? Why now? Why exposure instead of resolution? And the most unsettling conclusion circulating wasn't malice, it was exhaustion. It wasn't malice. It was exhaustion. Exhaustion from carrying questions that had no answers. From guarding a version of reality that no longer matched lived experience. From believing silence could protect something that had already crumbled. This reading required no villains, only time. And time, once lost, doesn't negotiate. By dawn, one truth stood out. This wasn't a moment meant to fade quickly. It was a fracture that would grow with every attempt to ignore it. Careers would go on. Music would drop. Appearances would resume. But the story had already carved itself into the fabric of reputations, the kind that linger long after trends vanish. When a man collapses not from spectacle, but from accumulated truth, the collapse itself isn't the story. The years that led here are. And once those years are exposed, nothing returns to what it once was. The court of public opinion doesn't wait for exhibits. It listens to tone, observes restraint, senses when silence has been weaponized for too long. In that sense, the verdict wasn't delivered, but the trial had unquestionably begun. What follows won't be louder. It will be heavier. Because once silence breaks, every pause begins to speak. When the live ended, the aftermath hit faster than anyone could scroll. Clips circulated before Papoose even signed off. Screenshots, alleged messages, voice notes, and shadowed recordings flooded feeds, dissected by fans, commentators, and journalists who smelled chaos like a predator senses fear. Every hesitation, every cracked word, every faltering pause became evidence in a trial without a judge but with millions of eyes. Viewers weren't just watching, they were connecting dots they didn't know existed. And the implications were staggering. The internet split. One faction insisted this was a carefully calculated exposure, a reckoning long delayed. Others believed. Fans rewound clips, slowed down pauses, scrutinized the inflection of his voice. Every subtle tremor, every sign that he had been bottling years of hurt and betrayal was examined. Some argued that every sentence was deliberate, each revelation timed for maximum impact. Others saw a man unraveling. They focused on raw emotion, the faltering voice, the collapse of composure. They saw not a strategist, but someone shredded from within, a life and marriage quietly poisoned while the world looked on, oblivious. And through it all, 50 Cent's name lingered like a ghost. It was no longer just a name. It had become a pivot point, a variable no one could ignore. Every leaked chat, every screenshot, every alleged voice note hinted at intimacy that went far beyond friendship. Moments of laughter and shared secrets. Private language replacing public performance. Moments Papoose described as closeness in spaces meant for concealment. Fans dissected every word, piecing together nights behind closed doors, the nights the world was never meant to see. Then came Remy Ma's voice, soft but weighted, in audio snippets that seemed to confirm what the messages implied. She allegedly spoke of arrangements, coded words hinting at a reality Papoose had never imagined. She allegedly referenced plans only two intimately connected people could orchestrate, meetings and timings that defied coincidence. The comment section erupted. Shock, disbelief, emojis, frantic speculation. Some screamed betrayal. Others whispered tragedy. Every scroll felt like witnessing history in motion, but this history was stitched with heartbreak at its core. When the conversation turned to family, the stakes deepened. Papoose spoke of paternity doubts, not as gossip, but as a confession that sliced through every protective layer of his life. He referenced alleged chats and voice notes that carried implications too heavy to ignore. Remy Ma's words suggested ambiguity, a deliberate twisting of truth and manipulation. This was no longer just celebrity drama. It was identity, lineage, trust, and betrayal colliding in real time. When his daughter's name surfaced, the emotional weight doubled. Viewers didn't just gasp, they recoiled, realizing the consequences were deeply personal, irreversibly intimate, and morally complex. Social media didn't pause. Threads exploded. Analysts and commentators tried to map timelines, but every new clip, every posted snippet seemed to contradict another. The narrative refused to settle. Fans began scrutinizing old appearances, interviews, and collaborations between Remy Ma and 50 Cent through this new lens. What once seemed casual now felt orchestrated. Smiles, gestures, shared moments, they were suddenly clues in a puzzle no one wanted to complete. Yet the pattern was undeniable to those looking closely enough. A hidden closeness spanning years, carefully concealed, now exposed by the collapse of silence. Even mainstream outlets tread cautiously, labeling everything as alleged. But the court of public opinion had no such restraint. Every comment, every YouTube reaction, every TikTok recap became testimony. Viewers weren't just consuming content, they were passing judgment in a trial with no end. And Papoose's restraint, the fact that he didn't play the alleged recordings in full, made the silence almost deafening, heavier than any evidence could be. The implication hung like a shadow, denser than the facts themselves. Hours stretched into relentless scrutiny. Every subtle inflection, every gesture was replayed in slow motion. Fans dissected Instagram posts, past collaborations, searching for hidden context, hunting for confirmation. Old interviews were combed over. Words once dismissed now seemed to carry ominous foreshadowing. Moments once dismissed now carried the weight of foreshadowing. Humor was recast as innuendo. Compliments became coded signals. As speculation grew, the emotional fallout became unavoidable. This was no longer entertainment. It had evolved into cultural autopsy. Heartbreak broadcast live. A marriage, a family, laid bare for digital judgment. The ethical debate erupted. Could private matters justify public humiliation? Did the alleged betrayal excuse this exposure? Was Papoose's pain enough to override social norms? Every argument collided online, amplified, merging into a storm that refused to dissipate. And through it all, the presence of 50 Cent hovered, unspoken yet omnipresent. A shadow over every interaction. A character defined as much by implication as action. Every mention, every subtle hint, every leaked line carried a gravity that pulled viewers into the unraveling. Papoose's voice faltered at times, but he never stopped. Each confession, each allegation, each delicate hint of evidence intensified the shock. The emotional weight was undeniable. This wasn't scripted. It wasn't fabricated. Every pause, every breath, carried years of suppressed betrayal and love unnoticed by anyone but him. It was as though the world watched him die emotionally in real time, piece by piece, while he narrated his own collapse. And while fans debated motives, strategy, and morality, the tragedy remained the centerpiece. Children, families, private life, all became collateral damage in a spectacle that had spun wildly out of control. The collapse wasn't merely of a man. It was of trust, of identity, and of the illusion that appearances could shield what was intimate, sacred, and vulnerable. Each leak, each implication, each alleged secret struck like a shard through the heart of everything he believed. And the internet was not simply watching, it was complicit, amplifying the story within a relentless echo chamber. What had been private agony was now a viral spectacle. By the second hour, the live had evolved into something far greater than content. It had become evidence, confession, and tragedy all at once. People weren't merely shocked, they were horrified, empathetic, and riveted simultaneously. Patterns emerged. Implications were terrifying. The emotional intensity was impossible to ignore. What began as a live stream had transformed into a cultural event, an ethical dilemma, and a viral sensation that no headline, tweet, or caption could fully capture. The narrative had shifted. This wasn't only about infidelity. It was about control, silence, loyalty, deception, and the consequences of exposing secrets to the public. It was proof that one moment, captured on camera, could shatter not just a marriage but the perception of an entire life, revealing cracks long ignored, long concealed, and now impossible to deny. As clips recirculated, hashtags trended, and commentary escalated, one truth became undeniable: the story had only just begun. The fallout would ripple through every corner of the internet, shaping how millions viewed love, trust, and betrayal in the most public of marriages. The aftermath unfolded like a storm with no calm. Clips, screenshots, and alleged voice notes had already spread, but now deeper layers surfaced. Fans and commentators dissected every word Papoose spoke, every trembling pause, every hint of betrayal. They weren't merely consuming content, they were piecing together a puzzle that was both shocking and tragic. Every detail pointed to years of meticulously hidden secrets, now erupting into the public eye. Alleged recordings painted a picture beyond casual suspicion. Supposed voice notes between Remy Ma and 50 Cent suggested intimacy, closeness, and a private bond Papoose described as a betrayal far deeper than emotional pain. Fans replayed every snippet, analyzing tone, inflection, laughter, and subtle cues hinting at far more than what had been visible. Friendship alone didn't capture it. Allegedly, these interactions weren't isolated. They were consistent, deliberate, revealing a hidden parallel reality that Papoose had only uncovered after years of silence. Every clip was dissected for proof of shared plans, secret meetings, and a level of trust and familiarity that left viewers stunned. The story grew even more explosive with the alleged chats that surfaced at the same time. Messages hinted at premeditated encounters, careful coordination, and expressions of affection that far exceeded normal boundaries. Words like "our time" and "keep it hidden" allegedly appeared, implying a secret life running concurrently while Papoose remained committed, unaware, and trusting. The public was witnessing what could only be described as a double life, and the implications rippled through family, loyalty, and betrayal. The alleged planning wasn't merely shocking, it was meticulously calculated. Then came the most devastating piece: Remy Ma's own words, allegedly recorded, admitting to deeper feelings for 50 Cent and revealing intentional deception toward Papoose. She supposedly acknowledged using him for stability and appearances while harboring affection for another. The voice notes allegedly referenced her daughter, Reminisce Mackenzie, suggesting that certain elements of her life, and the child's paternity, had been intentionally obscured. According to Papoose, hearing this live was like a dagger to the chest. Trust shattered. Emotional foundations crumbled. A sense of permanent damage settled in real time. The live comments erupted as viewers absorbed the gravity of the situation. Shock, disbelief, anger, empathy, heartbreak, all colliding in a digital storm. People debated whether this was a calculated exposure or the unraveling of a man forced to confront truths too heavy to carry alone. Analysts speculated on the legal and emotional consequences of the alleged revelations. Fans tried to reconstruct the timeline, cross-referencing old collaborations, social media posts, and interviews. Every moment once thought innocent now carried a darker context under this new lens. Emotionally, Papoose's composure had eroded. Every expression, the faltering of his voice, the pauses, they were all read as raw evidence of a man confronting a reality he never expected, a life carefully orchestrated around secrets he had no knowledge of. It was raw evidence of a man confronting a world he thought he understood, only to realize it had been false. Allegedly, the recordings suggested a closeness between Remy Ma and 50 Cent that went far beyond friendship or professional ties. Every gesture, every laugh, every affectionate remark allegedly captured in the leaks became proof of an emotional betrayal few could fully comprehend. By now, the story had grown beyond a single night or incident. Social media users began connecting past interactions between Remy Ma and 50 Cent, identifying patterns that hinted the alleged relationship had spanned years. Interviews, lyrics, public appearances, even casual social media posts were re-examined, each new interpretation reinforcing the public's understanding of what Papoose had alleged. A life meticulously orchestrated behind his back, now laid bare by one explosive live session. Mainstream media remained cautious, but online coverage was relentless. Every post, thread, and video dissected the alleged leaks, fueling the story and intensifying public fascination. The ethical weight was immense. This was no ordinary celebrity scandal. It was a tale of betrayal, emotional trauma, and personal devastation broadcast in real time. The alleged evidence pointed to manipulation, secrecy, and a deliberate concealment of intimate truths, transforming a private crisis into a public spectacle. The paternity claims added an even more tragic layer. Allegedly, the voice notes and chats suggested that certain truths about Reminisce Mackenzie's parentage had been intentionally obscured. Papoose's heartbreak, compounded by public scrutiny, became the focal point of a narrative that was both intensely personal and culturally explosive. Viewers weren't just witnessing a man's emotional collapse, they were confronting questions of trust, ethics, and identity in ways that blurred the lines between news and spectacle. As days passed, the story continued to evolve. Analysts and fans revisited every detail, every clip, every message, parsing intent, motive, and emotional resonance. Social media transformed into a courtroom of opinions where no single version could dominate. Allegedly, Papoose's decision to go public was allegedly strategic, a way to reclaim control over a story that had already slipped beyond his grasp. Every pause, every faltering word, every tear in his voice was replayed, analyzed, and dissected endlessly. The emotional weight of the alleged revelations was magnified by their public exposure. Private agony became contempt, grief transformed into gossip, heartbreak erupted into viral spectacle. The fallout was multifaceted. Family, reputation, loyalty, and personal identity were all under scrutiny, and the alleged leaks ensured that the consequences would be long-lasting. His breakdown, captured live on camera, became emblematic of the story itself. Allegedly, the recordings and messages painted a consistent picture of emotional betrayal and deliberate deception, and the public witnessed him confronting truths that had been concealed for years. The drama was relentless. The intensity was high. The emotional resonance was impossible to ignore. Each revelation shocked viewers while forcing them to grapple with the fragility of trust, the complexity of relationships, and the fallout of secrets exposed publicly. By the end of this chapter, it was clear this was more than a scandal. It was a tragedy that had been quietly unfolding for years, now unleashed in the most public, viral, and emotionally devastating way imaginable. Papoose's life didn't just shatter his own world, it reshaped the cultural conversation around loyalty, betrayal, and the consequences of private lives revealed. Every viewer became part of a story that was at once deeply personal, broadly cultural, and impossible to ignore. The aftermath showed no signs of fading. Clips continued to circulate. Fans analyzed every inflection. Alleged evidence was dissected, debated, and reinterpreted. Hashtags trended. Social commentary exploded. And yet, even as millions absorbed the story, one truth remained undeniable. The damage was irreversible, the emotional fallout profound, and the narrative forever etched into public memory. Papoose's heartbreak, the alleged betrayals, and the revelations of intimacy and deception had created a viral storm had erupted, one that would define this chapter of celebrity culture for years to come. Every layer of the story, from the alleged hotel encounters to the secret chats, voice notes, and emotional confessions, was a testament to the raw intensity of human emotion, the fragility of trust, and the unstoppable power of viral exposure. As viewers watched, debated, and shared, they were witnessing the unmasking of a private tragedy turned into a public obsession. A live broadcast that blurred the lines between gossip, news, and the irreversible consequences of secrets laid bare. By the end, one thing was undeniable. Papoose's collapse wasn't just a moment, it was a cultural event. A viral tragedy. A stark reminder that when private betrayals collide with public scrutiny, the fallout is not just emotional, it is permanent. The story, as shocking and devastating as it was, had cemented itself as one of the most viral, emotionally charged, and unforgettable celebrity crises of the digital era. Buckle up, because what unfolded wasn't something you scroll past. It was a seismic shake in the very foundation of celebrity trust, betrayal, and heartbreak. Papoose's live didn't just expose alleged secrets, it detonated them in real time, leaving millions speechless, questioning everything they thought they knew. The alleged intimacy, the private voice notes, the secret chats, the devastating paternity claims, all of it had transformed a personal heartbreak into a public tragedy of viral proportions. Every captured moment, every whispered word, every tear streaming down Papoose's face was a brutal reminder. No amount of fame, fortune, or influence can shield anyone from the raw pain of betrayal. Viewers were left staring into the wreckage of a life that had appeared solid, only to discover cracks running deeper than anyone could imagine. The alleged evidence suggested manipulation, secrecy, and a meticulously hidden double life, now splashed across social media for the world to dissect. Fans weren't just watching, they were unraveling timelines, piecing together patterns, and confronting the harsh reality that what happens behind closed doors can explode publicly in ways that leave permanent scars. Leave permanent scars. This is far more than a scandal. It is a cautionary tale about trust, loyalty, and the cost of silence. Papoose's breakdown is a profoundly human story, raw, unfiltered, and exposing the fragile nature of relationships when deception hides in the shadows. Every clip, every comment, every viral thread fuels the fire, making it impossible to look away. Watch closely. Share. Debate. Question everything. Because when secrets of this magnitude surface, silence is no longer an option. The world has witnessed a collapse that will echo for years, and the truth, the alleged evidence, the heartbreak, the unraveling, is still unfolding. Stay alert. Stay shocked. Keep your eyes on every twist, every subtle revelation, because this story is far from over.